Ottawa.
It's Thursday, September 10th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 13 degrees, and here is the 1310 News top story. If the federal government doesn't get the support it needs to stay in power following the upcoming throne speech and possible budget, it appears the next election will be fought on whether to continue massive deficit spending or cutting the federal budget. A new poll indicates Canadians are pretty evenly split on those two issues. We get more from our senior business editor, Mike Eppel.
41% of those surveyed by Nanos say they're in favor of continuing with large deficits in the ongoing support for Canadians. 43% say it's time to start cutting back. Bloomberg News reports it's the apparent split in the electorate, which will have big implications for the next federal vote, as the Trudeau government is signaling it will have an ambitious policy proposal in its fall mandate that would likely keep deficits at historically high levels. For years, the parliamentary budget officer has already calculated spending at about $380 billion in new debt and a federal debt north of $1 trillion for the first time. Nanos describes the poll results showing two Canadas with the receipt of COVID-19 pandemic programs, adding another schism in the electoral psyche. At the Business Center, I'm Mike Eppel.
1310 News Time at 10:02. Quebec's Premier François Legault says the majority of Quebecers are following COVID-19 guidelines, but a minority of irresponsible people are putting the health network in that province at risk.
It's time to penalize them. I'm announcing that starting Saturday, people who refuse to wear a mask without reason, where it's mandatory, will receive fines. This measure will apply all over Quebec, but will ask police officers to be particularly active in yellow zones.
Now, the Outaouais region is one of those 4 areas in the province considered a yellow zone on the severity scale of COVID-19. A man in his 60s suffered a serious head injury this morning in a collision on a parkway. Paramedics were called to the Sir George Etienne just before 6 for a collision. They arrived and found the vehicles involved were an industrial lawnmower and a pickup truck. The injured man also suffered minor soft tissue injuries. He was taken to hospital in stable condition. 1310 News Time at 10:04. Ontario's fiscal watchdog set to report today on exactly how much the COVID-19 response measures have cost the province and the feds. The FAO, the Financial Accountability Office, releasing a summary of measures implemented by the federal and provincial governments during the pandemic in a report to Queen's Park requested by an all-party standing committee. I'm Andrew Boyle, 1310 News. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawamatters.com.
It's your time to talk back on the Rob Snow Show. Have your say at 613-750-1310.
It's the Trump-Trudeau edition. Flip a coin. What leader will we talk about? How about Trudeau? What's the student grant program? You know, the Canada Student Grant Program at the heart of the We Charity scandal. Was that really, now it's clear, a bailout for the We Charity? Was it a bailout disguised as a grant program? Let's face it, the big news in the country is no grant program, no more We Charity. They're shutting it down, out of business. So does that prove it was? What it was, it really was the Trudeau government playing favorites and bailing out its favorite charity. A charity that had a Morneau on the payroll and paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to members of the Trudeau family. So was it a bailout? And look, I mean, I have CNN on in here, and it's just been, and I've been in the studio since 6:30 this morning. It's just like nonstop Trump, like unreal. About the Woodward book called Rage, Trump and Woodward. So the allegation is, we can get into this, okay? The allegation is Trump knew how bad coronavirus was going to be. He was told by his national security advisor during an intelligence briefing. He was told about it in late January. But he downplayed it publicly. Privately, he was told, this is going to be bad, Mr. President, this is going to be really bad. And he lied. And he downplayed it. He hid, the allegation is he hid the severity from the American people about how bad coronavirus is going to be. Trump says
If he did that, it's because he didn't want to cause a panic. So did he perpetrate a massive cover-up? Does he have blood on his hands? And what do you think about his line of defense that he wanted to avoid panic, hysteria? You know, maybe he did perpetrate a cover-up and avoid mass hysteria at the same time. I suppose that's possible, too. On the weed chair, 750-1310, by the way. We have lots of lines available for you this morning. 750-1310, 750-1310. Talkback hour. I want to make it clear on the weed charity scandal right off the top that I take no pleasure in it. I don't think anyone should take pleasure in the demise of the Canadian operations of the weed charity. The news broke last night. It's a sad ending, really, isn't it, for an organization that has been around for 25 years. And, you know, there are real people losing real jobs and real livelihoods. And I find no happiness in that. It's, you know, for rank and file employees of the weed charity, none of this is their fault. They just somehow managed to get caught up in all of this, right? Like the collateral damage. Now, that being said, it's a huge scandal. I think it remains a huge scandal. And I still have lots of questions that remain unanswered for me. But I would like to ask you, and you feel free to share your opinion. Was it a bailout? Was this a bailout? This is what we do here during the talkback hour at 750-1310. The closure, the decision by the Kielburgers to close it down, sell the real estate, is that proof positive that this student grant program was a bailout, tailor-made, and exclusive in the not-for-profit sector, right? Exclusive to the weed charity. Because, look, no student grant program. Unfortunately, no more weed charity. Is it really a big stretch to get from point A to point B? I don't really think so, but I'd like to know what you think. I mean, I've been saying for weeks, honestly, I don't know if I could ever really prove it, that, you know, this whole affair of having the weed charity run a government program, it never passed the smell test right out of the gate. To me, and I said this days after the announcement, I said, this reeks of a bailout. This reeks of a custom-made bailout to an organization that everybody knows has very close ties to the most powerful political people in the country. The Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance. And my gosh, the damage that could have been avoided. The damage, so much of it self-inflicted. Totally unnecessary. It did not have to be this way. There didn't need to be a weed charity scandal at all. It is entirely of the Liberals' own making. Because it seems to me they came up with an ill-fated, cleverly disguised bailout. And it blew up in their faces. As they should have known it would have. Entirely predictable. Did all of those involved in the Liberal Party really think that reporters in Ottawa would not ask questions about the nuts and bolts of all of this? That reporters in Ottawa would not be asking why we charity would run this program at all, as opposed to, say, employees of the government of Canada who run programs like this every single day? Did they really think, in the governing party, in all of their wisdom, did they really think reporters would simply overlook the so obvious connections between the weed charity and the Trudeau family? Between the weed charity and the Morneau family? Did they really think that, after looking into it, that the reporters would conclude that there's no there there? Because if so, ladies and gentlemen, that is a whole new level of arrogance. There's no more We Charity. It's selling off its assets. It's being wound down, and that includes the sizable real estate portfolio to be sold off. And whoever is left working for the We Charity in Canada, including the Kielburgers, I suppose, they're effectively out of a job. And it all could have been avoided. It all could have been avoided in any number of ways. For example, if the goal was to help, say for example, if the goal was to help the not-for-profit sector, the government could have come up with a package for the entire not-for-profit sector. Not just one charity, the We Charity. It's not as though the We Charity is the only charity that has suffered because of this pandemic. It's probably the only charity with such close connections to the most powerful political people in the country. If the goal was to help students by way of some sort of student grant program, well, that sort of program certainly didn't need to be outsourced to a charity. We all know that now. This is why we have a public service, to run programs just like this. That didn't pass the smell test from day one. There was no need to outsource that. And then, of course, We Charity had its own outsourcing business going on, didn't it? Outsourcing some of the work to teachers. Teachers who would make more money than students under a student grant program. Never made a lot of sense. We Charity outsourced some of the work to a public relations firm because it had no experience working in Quebec. Another eye-popping revelation. That the federal government, the Canadian government, the Trudeau government would award a massive government contract to a charity that can't do outreach to Francophone Canadians. 8.5 million people live in Quebec. That is more than just an oversight. And maybe this whole We Charity scandal could have been avoided if the Prime Minister and his Minister of Finance of the day had just had the foresight to recuse themselves. To say, I'm not coming anywhere near that decision. I am in an obvious conflict of interest. I can't even be in the room when you talk about it. Members of my family are on the payroll of the We Charity. I've accepted tens of thousands of dollars in free travel from the We Charity. I can't get involved in this kind of decision. How would that look? And yet the two of them together couldn't muster the gray matter to see that obvious conflict, and apparently nor could anyone in the room caution them about the optics. So it is a sad and pathetic tale all the way to the end. But was it a bailout? That's still a key question for me. Was it a bailout? It's a question that demands an answer even more now. Because here we are. No student grant program, no We Charity in Canada. Does that prove what I thought all along? It was a bailout.
The Rob Snow Show, brought to you by Myers Automotive Group.
As schools reopen this fall, the health and safety of students and staff is our top priority. Elementary schools will have in-class instruction 5 days a week. The majority of secondary students will start the year with an adapted model of part-time classroom attendance. To keep everyone safe, steps are being taken to maintain physical distancing through the use of social groupings, lunch in classrooms, and limited interaction among students and staff. To learn about other health and safety measures in our schools, please visit ontario.ca/reopening schools. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
This is Michael Hapke, President and CEO at Advanced Mortgage Investment Corporation. Even with the pandemic, AMIC returns have remained steady and will once again return a mid-7% compounded rate of return in 2020. Now just may be the perfect time to get off the roller coaster ride, reduce risk, and invest in local Ottawa real estate. We are now accepting new investors. Visit us online at advancedmic.com or call us at 613-656-0017.
On September 13th, the Today Showstopper at TSC will be the Vitamix 7500 low-profile blender with a 64 and 48-ounce container for wet and dry ingredients, plus lids, tampers, and 2 recipe books. With its high-performance power and space-saving design, it makes short work of baking dough, chunky soups, and perfect purees. Watch for this exclusive bundle on September 13th when it's the Today Showstopper. Shop tsc.ca. Today's shopping choice.
Ford employee pricing is ending soon, and real Ford owners can't say enough about their new 2020 F-150.
From pulling a boat to going to a business meeting, we can pretty much do it all.
Tons of power when I need it.
It has so much room for everything. Me and my family love it so much.
You said it, now get it. Get over $16,000 in total price adjustments with optional features selected on a new 2020 F-150 Limited. But hurry, Ford employee pricing ends September 30th. Visit your local Ford store or Ford.ca. Real Ford owners have been compensated for their time.
Everyone needs some really good friends. You know, the kind who have your best interests at heart, who would do anything for you. Friends like Craig and Wendy at OttawaHouseandCondo.com. They offer a free custom domain website, home staging consultations, free video, photos, drones, and so much more. Plus, they use a proven system to help you sell faster and get more money for your home. Friends don't let friends make a mistake with their biggest asset. For real estate with reassurance, call Craig and Wendy or visit OttawaHouseandCondo.com.
This is the sound of safety. 911 call center.
Hi, I want to report an impaired driver. There's a car swerving all over the road. I'm on highway.
The police want citizens to call 911 to report impaired drivers, because keeping them off the road is everyone's responsibility. If you suspect an impaired driver, pull over, call 911, and save someone's life. Bad Canada, helping the victim, stopping the crime.
Talk back on the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Was it a bailout? Was it a bailout? A cleverly disguised bailout, the Weed Charity. Student grant program. Fiasco. Sad to see that charity die. But was this a bailout? David, good morning, David. You're on 1310 News.
Good morning, Rob. Yes, it was a bailout. I got a couple of comments to make on it. Number one, I think the Kilburgers should have known what they're getting into. When asked at the ethics committee, about the thing, they said they wish they'd never answered the phone. But last night on the news, in response to a question, would you have answered the phone, he said yes, because it was the right thing to do for Canada. So you listen, guys, you can't have both ways.
Well, at the time, it was the right thing to do for Weed Charity, too. Let's face it, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
but, it goes from saying that, we wish we'd never answered the phone to yes, we'd answer the phone again if the call came. They contradicted themselves so much last time. They were putting on the sad faces to how sad it was for them. Yes, it is sad. You're right, it's sad. It's sad for the employees and for the people who would have benefited from the work that we does. But it was a bailout nonetheless, and both sides were active partners. When you sleep with dogs, you get fleas, and you do not go to bed with politicians. It's like when the Garment Inquiry Commission into this fiasco with the Liberal spending. It was the case of people getting into bed with politicians, and everybody gets burnt. It's like a moth to a flame. When it gets too close, it gets burnt. People who get to bed with politicians, you get too close to a politician, and you get burnt.
Okay, thank you, David.
Okay.
Very good call. Yep, really like taking David's call. I just wonder if it leads credence to the idea that this Liberal government, led by this Liberal Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau, saw an organization in need. An organization with very close ties to the Trudeaus. $500,000. I mean, there comes a point when you're making so much money that it qualifies as a close tie, does it not? What is it, $500,000? Does that qualify? an organization that was in trouble, and this was an aid package. This was a bailout. Just for them. Just for just for one organization. And not, let's face it, not any of the other thousands of charities doing good works every day all across the country and all over the world. Where was their bailout? And another question I would have for you is at the end. I mean, should Charlie Angus, for example, is going to join us when? An hour and a half or so, something like that, right? Should he just drop it now? Charlie, it's over, okay? Give it up, man. Move on. Over and out. Good buddy. Is that really the end of the We Charity scandal for you? Time to move on. Nothing more to see here. Let's face it, Bill Morneau walked the plank. He took the fall. He's not the Minister of Finance anymore. His great dream is to join the OECD. There is no student grant program to speak of. It has been canceled, and what benefit would it be to students now anyway? They're back to school. The We Charity is giving the money back, according to news reports, some $30 million, which, by the way, was all paid up front, right? Highly unusual, that, to begin with. And now, the We Charity itself, gone. So, is that the end of the We Charity scandal? And Charlie Angus and Polly, just give it a rest. Guys, give it a rest, okay? Move on. There's going to be a throne speech. There's going to be an ambitious green agenda. And you never know, there could be an election, maybe as soon as the fall. There's no doubt in my mind the Liberals would love nothing more than to put this all behind them. I do wonder if the opposition is quite prepared to do that just yet. I don't think so. We'll ask Charlie Angus when he joins us a little later in the program. Good morning, Eric. You're on 1310 News.
Morning, Rob.
Morning.
You're talking about the We scandal.
Yes.
I think this is just fresh tinder to keep the fire going.
Okay. You think it was a bailout, though?
I believe that, in terms of the bailout, if it looks like a duck, if it swims like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Or a coot.
Okay.
So, I would be surprised if the Kilburgers just walk quietly into the night.